Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I thought we would talk about back bends. So when we talk about back bends, it's basically taking our body from straight, and when I say straight, I'm talking our natural spine curvature. We talked about this in one of our other tutorials, but remember the spine has a natural indent here at the neck and another natural indent here in the low back. And when we talk straight or neutral spine, what we're trying to do is be as stacked as we possibly can. Shoulders over hips, hips over ankles, all in that nice straight line. Now, most of us are not in that straight line. So depending on how you are in your normal stance, you might notice that when you stand, you're not even. You might notice, I'm exaggerating, obviously a little bit more here, maybe your normal stance is like really one side higher or lower than the other. Yes? Most people aren't this exaggerated. However, we're not perfectly level. Nobody's perfect. But what we're trying to do is get closer to perfect, closer to evening off the left and right side. So when we talk back bends, people think these extreme back bends that, you see pictures in some of the magazines and it's like, wow, that's just like crazy flexibility. It doesn't have to be that extreme. Simply, a back bend is from where your neutral spine is. I don't think I'm 100% stacked shoulder over hips, over knees, over ankles. It's not 100%. How close? I mean, you can probably see better than me right now. So basically, when we curve forward, that's flexion. And when we go in the opposite direction, and again, I'm going to exaggerate here. When we go in that direction, that's what we call a back bend. So we want to make sure that our back bends are comfortable because many of us can't get into those extreme back bends, but we can get into a little bit of a back bend, yeah? And this tutorial is for you to start incorporating back bends into your practice, which basically means you're opening up the front side of your body a little bit more. But we want to do back bends that are comfy on our low back. Most people do their back bend and they just crunch everything here in their low back, and then they try to do a back bend and then they're like, that hurts, I can't do it. So we need to find some parameters or some guidelines for you to safely get into a back bend and for you to be comfortable as you try to lengthen that spine and start curving it into that back bend, because back bends are good. We want our spine to be movable in all directions. So we'll talk about the different guidelines, and then in case you're not sure, well, where do I do a back bend in my practice? We'll talk about that a little bit. So when we talk back bends, I want to talk about heart center. We talked about heart center, I think, in one of our other videos, but in case you're not sure, you kind of know where your heart is, right? It's usually, unless your last name is Stark or something, usually it's a little bit off to the side. So when we talk our heart center, we're talking here in the center of our body. And we use that as a little bit of a gauge because I'm going to say lift your heart center. So the idea is trying to take this center part and go up as opposed to just the one side. Yeah, makes sense? So in your back bend, what you'd like to start right off the bat is, remember we talked about tails? If you're a kitty cat or a puppy dog, I'm going to exaggerate here a little bit. Your tail you'd like to try to tuck down a little bit. So I'm exaggerating a little bit because I want you to see, and I'm hoping that the contrast of the color of my clothing and the wall will be able to, I hope that you'll be able to see a little bit better. I hope so. So that tail, you want to kind of push it down. So your hips are going to shift. Again, I'm going a little bit extreme here so that you can see. I don't want to go here. I want to go here. So I'm tucking my tail under. Yes? That's kind of the first thing. Now, that tucking of your tail, we're talking small, gentle. I want to have basically my belly button engaged. I want to tuck that tail under so I get a slight tilt of the hips. Right away, you should feel kind of like your spine getting longer. And right away, that length should give you a little bit of a feeling that you're getting taller. Yes? After that, you don't want to just start, allowing yourself to fall in that low back. You want to keep it safe. So after you've done that little tuck, then you want to think about that heart center. And imagine a string being attached to that heart center, and it's trying to lift your spine through that string at your heart center upward. So as it's going up, I'm not levitating, but I don't want to just collapse here. See how my shoulders are collapsed forward? My tail is tucked, but I've closed my heart center. Not exactly what I want to do. I want to open up that heart center up to the sky. And as it goes up to the sky, I'm probably going to notice that my gaze isn't straight forward, but it starts to lift. And that's when you start getting that lifting sensation, and then you start to go into your back bend. Now, for many of you, this is going to be where your back bend is. My shoulders, I'm hoping you can see, are behind my hips, right? So they're not forward. This is flexion. And what I'm looking for is to start investigating my back bend. Now, eventually, my low back is going to be able to hold me. So at the beginning, I might notice, oh, my low back is a little weak. And just tucking the tail and lifting that heart center, that might be already enough sensation for me. Especially if you notice that your natural stance is very forward. If you notice that this is how you naturally move around, your goal, your aim is to try to get these shoulders, a little bit more stacked. I'm not going to start trying to get into a back bend if I can't even straighten yet. So a back bend would be too advanced for you right at this moment. If you're here, you're still working on straightening, getting into that straight, natural S-curve of the spine. Yes? Makes sense? So when you start to incorporate your back bend, some of the problems that tend to happen because we're so eager, we want to get into these back bends and we're like, oh, I can do it, my spine can do it. What tends to happen is you get lazy in the hips and you just dump everything forward. Yes, in my back bend, you're going to notice that hips do come forward, but I'm not just dumping everything. I mean, I'm sure you can see even here, it looks uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable. My spine is all out of whack. This is not comfortable. And then if I start trying to do this back bend, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. So I don't want to dump into my low back when I'm trying to back bend. You're thinking of lengthening the spine first, which is the tucking of the tail, yes? And then trying to lift that heart center. Yeah? So when you're starting to incorporate your back bends into your practice, don't go crazy because you're not going to be happy. You're going to strain your low back, which is already a problem for a lot of people. I hear that all the time. I can't do yoga, my low back hurts. That's why we want to do yoga, so that you improve the strength in your low back, in your spine. Your spine is that center thing in your body that kind of controls everything that you do, all those movements, and we want all of those movements to be comfortable. So as you're starting to lengthen out your spine and maybe extend it even more into a back bend, go easy. Now, where do you put in back bends? If you're thinking, oh, a back bend is just one of those crazy wheel poses. No, I can't do wheel. No, but I can in mountain pose as you come to the front of your mat. Maybe when you come to mountain pose, you're kind of noticing that you want a little bit more. So maybe in your practice, we come to mountain pose at least once, pretty much most of the time. So maybe on the second time or the third time, maybe you want to start incorporating a little bit of a back bend if you feel that that's what you need. There are going to be some days where no back bends. Nope. And that's fine. But if you're thinking, oh, I might incorporate that, just make sure that your low back is comfortable, that you're not jamming your low back. Yes? So mountain pose is one of the easiest poses that you can start practicing your back bend. Now, if you've been doing your vinyasas, that's probably one of the places where you most feel your low back, because people try to get into this back bend in their vinyasa as they lift their chest. You know, vinyasa, when we're down on our bellies and then we try to do our back bend, we get into too much of a back bend and our low back complains. So if you're trying to do your up dog, maybe you should stay with cobra until your back kind of gets comfortable with that. So vinyasa is probably one of the places where most people complain, oh, I try to do my back bend in my vinyasa and my low back hurts. Remember, tuck that tail under, yes? So there are lots of places that you can start putting in your back bend. Mountain pose is the easiest. Vinyasa is probably the most common place that people put in back bends and they go a little bit too far too soon. So if you're noticing that you're adding vinyasas into your practice and you're noticing that your low back is not happy, it's complaining to you, then take a progression back. Take an easier version of one of the modifications in the vinyasa so that your back learns to slowly and gently be coaxed into that back bend. And once again, if you feel that your back is not quite ready to get into the back bends, don't put them in at all, especially if on a daily basis, 24/7, you're like, oh, my low back hurts. Well, don't start trying to jam in back bends until you're ready. So really take it easy. Back bends are one of those where if you get into a variation of a back bend that's really uncomfortable and it's painful, you really are not going to be happy. Your back bends should not hurt your low back. You should feel some sort of sensation there because you're flexing your spine in different ways other than that natural S curve. So yes, you want to feel it, but not at a point where it's painful. If you're trying your back bends and you feel pain, you need to ease off and take a different variation, or maybe take out the back bends for a little while until you get a little bit more flexible in your spine. So back bends is just another layer that you could start adding into your practice, because again, we want our spine to be flexible in different directions, not just forward, not just side. We want our spine to be able to move around for, all those things that you want to do. Maybe you like to do some dancing. When you're dancing, your spine is moving in all directions. So we want to coax that length out of the spine so that it's strong, so that you can do your other movements more easily. So I hope that is a little bit informative for you, and start putting in a couple of back bends into your practice every once in a while. See how it feels. See where you're at. Where is your spine to start off with? Is it really closed? Maybe you can start thinking about opening up that front side of the body with incorporating a couple of back bends into your practice. Maybe that'll feel a little bit better. It'll make you feel a little bit taller, a little bit lighter, and that's what we want. We want our practice to make us feel good, not in pain. So back bends, start putting them into your practice when you think you're ready, and we will see you very soon. Please consider subscribing to the channel. All you have to do is hit that big red button that says subscribe. It's free for you and it helps me out. If you like the content, hit that thumbs up. And if you think that someone that you know might benefit from these videos, please feel free to share the link.